Today we are starting with Psalm 133. How very good is it? How very good and pleasant it is when kindred live together in unity. It is like the precious oil on the head, running down upon the beard, on the beard of Aaron, running over the collar of his robes. It is like the dew of Hermon, which falls on the mountains of Zion. For there the Lord ordained his blessing, life forevermore. Next is Acts 2:42 to 47. They devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching and fellowship, to the breaking of bread and the prayers. Awe came upon everyone because many wonders and signs were being done through the apostles. All who believed were together and had all things in common. They would sell their possessions and goods and distribute the proceeds to all as any had need. Day by day, as they spent much time together in the temple, they broke bread at home and ate their food with glad and generous hearts, praising God and having the goodwill of all the people. And day by day, the Lord added to their number those who were being saved. Next is Hebrews 10:24 to 25. And let us consider how to provoke one another to love and good deeds, not neglecting to meet together, as is the habit of some, but encouraging one another, and all the more as you see the day approaching. Finally is Romans 12:15 through 18. Rejoice with those who rejoice, weep with those who weep, live in harmony with one another, and do not be arrogant, but associate with the lowly. Do not claim to be wiser than you are. Do not repay anyone evil for evil, but take thought for what is noble in the sight of all. If it is possible, so far as it depends on you, live peaceably with all. May God bless these words to our understanding.
Miren que bueno es. How pleasant and harmonious when God's people are together. This is where God bestows the blessing, life forevermore. Our readings today talk about the joy, the importance, the value of getting together. It's my belief that Homo sapiens are, at our core, a communal species. We're not meant to be off by ourselves. There are times when it would feel much better and perhaps easier and far more comfortable to be off by ourselves because sometimes, let's be honest, others are not where we want to be. But at our heart, we're called to be parts of communities. Which is probably why so many faith traditions have that gathering together for festival, for lament, why so many faith traditions bring people together. We know that somehow we're stronger when we're together. We know that when we're together, we can rejoice with those who rejoice and weep with those who weep. As I often say in my opening words at a funeral, the old proverb that a joy shared is a double joy, but a sorrow shared is only half a sorrow. We know that being part of community feeds us somehow. Scripture tells us that it's not optional. From Psalm 33, behold how pleasant it is when God's people are together. To Acts, telling the story of the early church and how they clustered together, sharing everything they had so that all could be together. All could have what they need. Sharing in worship, sharing in learning, sharing so that they could be empowered to go back out and tell the story. To Hebrews, which says, don't get in the habit, as some people have, of forgetting to get together. Interesting thing about that was one of the passages which was raised up by some of my compatriots 5 years ago when they were being told, you have to find different ways of being in community. You can't gather hundreds of people together, or dozens of people together, or any group of people together, depending where we were in the pandemic pattern. And some of my compatriots would pick up Hebrews and say, no, it says right here, we have to gather together. Some of us pushed it and said, okay, what does community need to look like? Does community always have to look like it has looked before? Can we gather together in ways other than cramming ourselves into one room? We'll come back to that. Or to Romans, rejoice with those who rejoice. Weep with those who weep. Community is of vital importance to the life of faith because we can't do it alone. We can try. Many of us have portions in our lives where we're convinced that other people just aren't worth the hassle, are just not, or we just don't feel safe. Because being in community brings with it an inherent vulnerability, risk. Because if we're going to rejoice with people who rejoice and weep with those who weep and share our fears together and share our lives together, there is vulnerability there, which is sometimes wonderfully freeing and sometimes utterly terrifying. And yet, when I think of all the times I've asked people why the church is important to them, when I think of all the discussions I've been in about why do you do this on a Sunday morning? Over and over again, the piece I hear is because of the people, because of the community, sometimes using family imagery or neighborhood imagery. Over and over again, the reason people tell me they gather together, the reason they tell me church is important is because of that community they have become a part of. Whether it's because they had those times when they knew they couldn't do it themselves, so they came to church and it didn't matter what the sermon was about. And it didn't matter what hymns they sung. They came to church because what they needed was their friends to gather around them and hold them up. Or the people who move across the country and need some place to find new friends and become part of an adoptive family. I know there's people here who have that experience. Or people with young children who, for whatever reason, think their children need something different in their lives. And they bring them to church. And one of the beauties of a church community is that it's one of those few places where we have a community which is far broader we hope. Because it's got surrogate grandparents and surrogate uncles. I've long thought that one of the gifts we can give as a church community, especially when it comes to youth work, is we can give teenagers other adults who care about them, who are willing to listen to their stories, because sometimes teenagers, I know this will come as a real surprise to all of you, but sometimes teenagers really don't want to talk to their parents about important stuff. Sometimes parents don't really want to talk to their teenagers about important stuff either, but life is life. Over and over again, I've been reminded of the importance of these communities we call churches, because they strengthen us. And so we give thanks for the chance to be part of these communities we call churches. There's one piece I said we'll come back to. In Acts, that description of that very utopian description of the Christian community, where everybody got along and they all shared everything in common. Just so you know, it lasts about one chapter, and then they start fighting. Communities are challenging. They get together to be strengthened, to be sent back out. One of the interesting things about community, perhaps especially faith community, is that it's not about the people in the circle. One of the interesting things about community, perhaps especially faith community, is that we exist to strengthen each other, to share bonds, to share stories, to hold each other up, so that we can go out and serve and tell the story. We're not here just for ourselves. Some would say we're not here for ourselves at all, which goes a bit too far. But it's not a closed circle. We are a community which gathers together to learn, to grow, to be strengthened, to be encouraged, to be emboldened, to go out and serve. Thank you. To grow the community around us. Because each of us are part of many different communities in our lives. Sometimes they're overlapping circles, sometimes they're concentric circles, but we're parts of various communities. The life of faith strengthens us to go out and build those other communities, the big ones and the small ones. That too, for me, is something to be thankful for the chance to serve, to grow, to strengthen. We are called to be a community. We are called to share each other's lives. We are called to sing together, to pray together, to weep together, to dance together. We are called to share together. Because we know that in the end, there's some strange math that happens. And the community is stronger than the total of its parts. The community is stronger than all of us as individuals could be together. There's something that grows. God calls us to this place. God calls us to grow together. Thanks be to God.